Joining me right now, co-founders at that, two of them, very special friends of our show of a niche product called Helmm. Deo for your BO. I think you guys will be really interested for this one. Thank you for being here, everybody. I'm got to introduce you to Zach, Groffsky, and Taylor Lane. Welcome to the Men of the Hour podcast.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for having us. We are quite happy to be here. Deo
That
for
is,
the BO.
That was Zach's voice, if you're not tuning into the video. How are you guys hanging in?
Pretty good. I think that COVID has obviously been really crazy for the past year. We're based in New York City, so that was at the beginning of all this a really, really wild ride. This city kind of got shellacked pretty hard, and since then, the country's been in a lot of turmoil, and there's been a lot of people who have been struggling. And honestly, we're just thankful that our business has survived and that our families and friends are doing really well. COVID has been bad in so many different ways, but for us, at least in the direct-to-consumer e-commerce deodorant space, it's actually been kind of a silver lining. All these people are at home, and I think kind of thinking about all the mundane things that they've never really thought about before and re-examining them and trying to see if they can upgrade and improve their lives in certain ways. But yeah, no, we've been pretty well. Zach and I were actually just out in Colorado together for several weeks, enjoying some snow. I think we're ready to get some more sunshine and for this pandemic to finally round itself out.
Yeah, I hope so. We'll get to the origins too. I want to hear more about the beginnings of Helmm. But to your point, I think people are sitting down wondering to themselves, what more can I do to improve my life? What other products do I need in my life? I swear I've bought like 16 products that are probably all the modern brands of like a coffee, not lipstick, but like chapstick. And there's all these teeth whitening. Like you end up buying all this random shit because we're sitting at home bunkered up. And I think who would have thought deodorant? But listen, I mean, you don't want to sit there and smell yourself, right? Let's take us back to the beginnings of Helmm. In terms of the two of you partnering up, you guys were friends prior to the brand launching, which is incredible. And I think that's the beautiful story of having a co-founder partnership. I don't know. And I've said this prior on other interviews. I don't know if I could have launched, with another co-host, for example, because it's a different arena, but I'm curious to see what that story was like. So Zach, kind of preface us with the beginnings of Helmm and why you guys decided to launch a deodorant brand and then ultimately stick. Right, you like that pun there? Stick.
Yeah,
to stick.
you're on a roll, Justin. I love
it. But stick to just.
We're gonna have to steal all these lines from you, I think, by the time we're done. But
just give me a little byline on the website, and I'll be happy with you. You ain't gonna pay me nothing. But take us back to the beginning, Zach.
Yeah, so Taylor and I have been friends now for about a decade, which is kind of crazy to think about. We graduated from Duke together back in 2015. I think starting a business with your friend becoming business partner, it's extremely important to have some delineation there, right? Make sure that your sort of work life, personal life, social life still remains segmented. And Taylor and I think have done a good job of that. We always joke about how we were probably literally the only other person amongst our sort of social circle who we'd want to do this with for a variety of reasons. Hopefully none of the others are listening right now, but well, hopefully they are. But I think it's lended itself a lot of advantages for us. We both know each other's strengths and weaknesses, obviously, and I think knowing each other so well going into it, anytime you're starting a business, going off on an adventure like this, you're going to face a lot of adversity. So knowing how the other person reacts to certain situations, being able to complement each other is super important. And, our relationship as friends first and now co-founders has, I think in many ways, just enhanced and amplified our friendship, which has sort of been a great byproduct of all of this. But let me go back, and no one wants to hear about our friendship. So let me tell you guys a little bit more about Helmm. So we started developing Helmm back in 2017. At the time, we were both working in finance, had these serious jobs, going to these big buildings in Midtown Manhattan. But every morning prior to these jobs, just like you were telling us before, Justin, we were still putting on the same deodorant products that we were in middle school, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, back when you were 12, 13, you'd be spraying on a gallon of Old Spice every day, or Axe. And, you know, the products available to us no longer fit our lifestyle, fit our needs. They didn't really make sense. And on top of that, you know, as Taylor was alluding to earlier, we're both huge outdoors guys, big advocates for the environment, hiking, skiing, surfing, basically everything you can't do in New York
Hence the
City.
Colorado trip.
Yeah, Taylor and I love to do. So we saw this super wasteful industry, right? The personal care industry, the beauty industry is one of the single most biggest, largest contributors to plastic waste in our world. Over 120 billion units of single-use plastic went into our oceans and our landfills from the personal care industry last year. And deodorants are a main culprit of that. So if you think about a traditional deodorant stick, they're made of 6 to 7 different plastics. It renders them wholly unrecyclable. And they're all single use. They're just super wasteful. So at its core, Helm was originally developed with the mission of making your bathroom greener, of helping people reduce their plastic waste. Now, in order to have an environmental impact, we realized really early on, you can't only offer environmental impact, right? Unfortunately, consumers these days just aren't that interested. You need to offer something else. So in order to have the impact that we're looking to have, we realized we have to sell a ton of deodorant, like a ton of deodorant. And in order to do that, we needed to make a high quality, superior, premium product, a best in class product we always talk about. So that's what we did. We partnered with amazing partners to create this thing. Fragrances were all made by a world-renowned French perfumer. Her name's Cecile Hua. Her fragrance making process is protected by UNESCO. I don't really know what that means. But
I don't think any of us do.
Sounds cool. The design team behind Harry's Razors and other great brands created our container, what we call our refillable vessel. Our formulas were all created by proactive chemists. And what we have today, we offer the world's first refillable deodorant product. It reduces plastic waste by over 70% compared to your traditional stick. And looking forward, we're in the process of creating a bunch of other personal care beauty products that are far more sustainable, far greener, that we're super excited to release as well. So
that's cool.
As you mentioned, have definitely come a long way since then, and have a long way to go as well.
Yeah, I mean, you guys will probably be inching the 4-year mark here soon, if not already. I want to get to all those products towards the end of this episode with you guys. I'm curious to see what other products you feel like will, I guess, be beneficial not only for customers, but for people who, want to use a deodorant. Because then again, when I first saw your guys' brand, I noticed it was only deodorant first. And so when you guys did launch that, I wanted to ask you to just focus on one product at a time. Is that something you thought about? I mean, we did it with the show, for example. We're always like, one podcast, we've been pitched other show ideas and stuff. And I'm like, no, one at a time, see how it does. And once it's off the ground and successful and you are happy with it, then you can move on to adding more to the plate. Is that similar to what you guys were thinking?
Yes. So it's a great question. And I think there's obviously value in a singular focus. For us though, it was, I think, a lot more practical. So when we started Helm, we both vowed to ourselves, we're never going to, I'll back up a second. If you look at all these other brands that are coming out these days, personal care brands, food brands, a lot of them simply take this sort of stock off the shelf packaging and slap a new label on it, slap their brand colors on it, and then release it to the public. At Helm, we will never do that. Those packaging options are wasteful. A lot of them are non-recyclable. So we invest the time, the effort, the money to create truly innovative and, in our current case, refillable products. So I'll give you an example. We're in the process of developing sort of a more fragrance cologne-y type product as well. It would be super easy for us to take a standard spray bottle or take a standard lipstick bottle and stick our product in there. But it takes us time to, create something that meets our eco and quality standards. So I think, of course, there's value in especially in a new launch and having a singular focus and having a singular message that consumers can grasp onto, but it's also practical as well, in all honesty.
Yeah. I want to get to branding and building the team in just a second, because I noticed your guys' brand overall seems pretty modern and simple, and that's a great direction to go. You mentioned Harry's razors earlier. They also have a very simple design, and I think that's something that is sexy to the consumer nowadays. Fellas, before we get into your brand, how that was built, and then ultimately hiring a team, right? Those are some of the biggest things I think entrepreneurs have to consider on the forefront, but sometimes it takes a little longer than anticipated, right? But you guys are almost 4 years in, so I'm curious to find out about both of those aspects of Helm. Before that, being an environmentally focused brand, how many deodorants would you say that it takes to essentially make an actual impact? Just to give people an idea.
Well, what I think is really okay. So we were talking at the top of this about how and this is particularly interesting in COVID time, but people are kind of relooking at mundane things that they do in their life every day. So daily routine sort of items. And so maybe putting deodorant on every morning takes 6 seconds or something like that. But it's one of those things that you do pretty much every single day. So over the course of a lifetime, you're doing something like, it's like 25,000 times you put on deodorant. And there's not really like, how many other things in your life
do you do 25,000 times?
That you do 25,000 times. And so it's one of those really small things that has a very large impact. And so we have a bunch of statistics that Zach can share with you about how much plastic is saved, and we do it in terms of straws and things like that. But really what we're trying to get to in society is a way where we're plastic free, or at least we have a closed loop cycle. And people always think in these really grand ideas of how can we make massive, massive impacts with one quick fix. And the reason people do that is because changing all these small behaviors is actually really annoying. You have a lot of cognitive reasons why you don't want to make those changes. And you feel like when you do make the changes, you're like, oh, that doesn't really matter that much. But when you blow it out over the scale of a lifetime or even a couple of years, you realize something that you do every single day builds up into thousands of usages and actually has quite a large impact on you personally and on the environment in general.
Yeah. Would you guys say too, when you think about, and then I want to hear the stats, Zach, but when you're thinking about the consumer now, have you been hearing that people are becoming more aware and wanting to make sure that they have a positive economical footprint for the most part, especially when maybe not necessarily just to buy Helm? So for example, I would totally switch from Degree Men's to Helm right after this call, but someone who's not me, who wants to make a small difference, you guys, I'm sure, are helping to educate them. But is that something you've started to find with people either buying your product or people just in general saying that they want to help make a better footprint?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think in a lot of ways in our society, whether it's about the environment, about other societal issues, in many ways, progress comes with compromise. Progress comes slowly, right? So while we started selling to the market about 2 years ago, and one of the most important things for us, talking about behavioral change and whatnot, was to ensure that our product did not require significant behavioral change. Using Helm is the exact same as using your Degree for Men. And that was super important to us, right? If it's too different from what people are used to, it won't be adopted. But to answer your greater question, I think, and sort of what I was alluding to at the top a bit, people are starting to care more for sure, but only if it's convenient for them, right? So for example, there was this huge push to eliminate plastic bags, eliminate plastic straws, and we sort of relied on the consumer for a while to do that. It didn't happen. Now you see, especially here in New York, Starbucks no longer offers straws. CVS, grocery stores no longer offer plastic bags. So I think slowly but surely, there has been mass adoption. Some of it might be forced a bit, but hey, however we get there is fine with us, right?
And we'll get there together.
Yeah, right.
As
And
they say.
you know, as it relates to Helm specifically, you know, I'll be the first one to admit, I wish we used even less plastic than we do now. We reduced plastic by over 70% compared to traditional deodorants. It's fully recyclable, but I wish we did more, and we're working to do more. So, you know, we've had a lot of customers ask us like, hey, why do you still use plastic? Like what's going on, right? And my response to them is, you know, to go from 0 to 100, right? 100 being a fully sort of plastic free society and ecosystem, you have to take those intermediate steps, and you have to celebrate those small wins as well. So to answer your original question, how many sticks of deodorant do we have to sell? The answer is really infinite, right? So we're on pace right now to have more plastic than fish in our oceans by 2050. That is a crazy statistic. Think about that. In less than 30 years, we are going to have more plastic than fish in our ocean. And you think about, like, you go to the beach or you go to the lake, there are like millions of fish in a single school. It's just crazy to think about. So, you know, for us as a company, every refill we sell, eliminates the equivalent of about 50 plastic straws, to give you some context. To date, our customers have helped us reduce or eliminate over 100,000 pounds of plastic that go into oceans and landfills. But we recognize this is a tiny marginal step, right? It doesn't only take Helm and other new eco-friendly startups. It's going to take a mass adoption by everybody. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we've been most proud of is we've seen other refillable, sustainable packaging enter the market. And, you know, as the world's first refillable deodorant, we like to think we had a small part in that. So, you know, I think our goal is, I could share, you know, the exact numbers we have internally, but we're at 100,000 pounds of plastic right now. Within 2 years, we want to be at 500,000 pounds. And, you know, you can sort of back up and do the math from there. But
I didn't bring you on the show to do math, Zach. What is this?
I mean, hey, the whole Hapa thing, I just had to showcase my skills a little bit. So.
Wait, for context, everybody listening, Zach and I are Hapa. Taylor's Hapa too in his own way, but it's this term that we used with Zach King, if you had tuned into his episode. And for anybody who's half Asian, half American, half Asian, half white, whatever you want to call it nowadays, we were alluding to that earlier. But yeah, Asians are always bringing math into the story, and I don't freaking know why. But for your reason, it's a good reason. 100,000 to 500,000, that's amazing. I don't know how heavy that would be. I don't want to find out. I just want to see that it happens. You mentioned refillable. That's really important. Because every time a stick of deodorant goes down a bit, I'm always like, yeah, okay. But then you start realizing that when it's even maybe an inch left of your deodorant, you try to keep turning it for men and women who use like the actual stick deodorant rather than the gel. I guess I don't know the two differences, but and I'm always like, all right, time to toss it. And then you just immediately throw it away. Right?
That was actually one of Zach. I never did this, but Zach was one of those guys who, before we started this whole thing, he would, like, we were talking about in the original days of conceptualizing deodorant, refillable deodorant. He was like, yeah, I always bring it down right to the bottom and it's crumbling and it scrapes my underarm.
Yeah, no, mine scraped my underarm this morning.
Yeah.
I swear.
Yeah. And you get rashes and irritation and it's not fun. And you're always like, oh, I'll go to the store tomorrow. And then you never actually go to the store and get another one. So you just kind of put up with it for a couple of days.
Wait, can we talk about that really quickly? And then you guys as entrepreneurs is fascinating enough. So we're going to pivot to that conversation in a minute, because there's a lot of depth to, I think, the two of you being friends and then having launched this. And you alluded to 2 years earlier being when you went out to the market. So that now means, if I'm doing the math correctly, being as happy as I'd like to be, that means you probably spent a good year and some change, if not more, trying to actually build the thing.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I want to get into that year and that experience, because you guys have come a long way. Before that, though, you're right. So deodorant, really quickly, when you're using, I feel like everybody always comes down to the fine little bit that you have left in it. But then something else I was going to bring up is when you think about trying to buy a new one and I don't know, this might come out really raunchy, but I'm just going to say it. When you're using deodorant, shampoo, face wash, replacing your loofah, your toothpaste, your toothbrush, I can't even think of all the other miscellaneous things that we use on the daily basis, but it goes back to what you said earlier about how people just don't think about it anymore. You just do it 25,000 times in your life.
Yep.
How many times have you looked at something that was like almost empty, for example, one of those miscellaneous items that I had mentioned, and said, yeah, I'll get it soon. And it takes you forever to actually go to the freaking store and buy it.
Yep.
So
I
we
mean,
had a customer once, and one of the best parts of our jobs is hearing, how we've impacted our customers. Later on, we'll share some hilarious reviews we've gotten with you. But we got a review once from a customer, or customer service inquiry, one of the two, and it was this guy who was telling us how he used to, this New York guy, I think he was in finance, attorney or something. He was telling us how in the past he'd be down at the bottom of his Old Spice or whatever it was. Yep. It would start to crumble. And your first step is you sort of pick up those crumbles off the ground and try and put it back in. And then true. It scratches you. And then he went through this, list of the various things he would do before he'd go buy a new one. And this was had a good job, could afford deodorant, but he was like, yeah, I hate to admit it, I've used my roommates, I've used my roommates' girlfriends. I was late for work once. I stopped into Dwayne Reed, took a swipe and put it back. It's just, it's one of those things where it was just like, you don't realize some of the things that become natural. Not that any of that is natural. Clear that up. But, I think, and this is, when I talk about how we wanted to upgrade everything, these small experiences of putting on your deodorant, we address. So, we addressed the eco thing. We made world-class fragrances. But one of my favorite parts about our product is we have a low-level notification in our refills. So when you see a certain part of the refill spin up, it's time to order a new one. Or if you're on a subscription with us, we offer super convenient, seamless subscriptions. It's time to sort of adjust. So, for whatever reason, a lot of people have shared that same experience as you, Justin. I think once, even when we had just started out, we saw, I think it was Mindy Kaling had posted a story on Instagram about how she was at that sort of, we need a name for that scratching point or whatever it is.
I was just going to say the scratching point. People, I guess, hold on, we'll think for a second here. It's not, maybe it's not scratching point, but like the almost empty point. Yeah.
It is
right.
The point of no return. So, we had seen a story that she posted, and that was in a way sort of an epiphany where it's like, wait a second, a lot of people are having these same issues. A lot of people could benefit from something better because, nothing better existed before. And that's one of the main reasons we got into this in the first place.
Going back to the first place, how long did you guys spend before you went out to market building this? And then can you give us, in short or long, whatever you guys think, and you can feed off of each other here, but I mean, look at your faces, for example. You're like, damn, that was a lot of work we put in before we put the first out on the shelf and launched the website and all that stuff. But what really went into building Helmm, and what was that experience like?
Well, first of all, it took us a little over a year to develop it. maybe even more. Maybe it was like 14 months. I'm trying to remember back then.
I think it was 18 months because we launched in June of 2018.
That's right.
So
what was
after
really,
I graduated college, by the way.
There you go.
Perfect timing.
What was really interesting about it was that first of all, we had no idea what we were doing. Just point blank, we were young and naive and didn't like our old jobs very much. And we had this great idea. And it was the first one our friends weren't like, you guys are absolute morons. They were like, this is actually kind of a decent thing you should try. So we were just like, screw it, let's go do it. And we happened to very quickly find some great partners. Like Zach mentioned, the guys who did Harry's designs, designed our product, but coming up with the brand and coming up with the new product and figuring out how to patent that and launch and develop a website and teaching ourselves marketing from scratch. That was like a crash course in business school.
How long did that take?
It's
ongoing, I would say.
I was going to say, right? Yeah, you guys are probably still learning.
It took us 18 months to launch the thing. And then probably, if I'm being candid, another like 6 to 8 months to actually figure out how to run a successful e-commerce business. And we're still trying to figure that out all the time, better ways to do things, but it was like a massive learning curve. And I know people always ask us, they're like, so I have a great idea. What should I read or who should I talk to figure this out? Or like, how do I get advice about this stuff? And
what's the first thing you say?
The first thing we always say is like, the books are always wrong and every experience is different. So you kind of just at some point need to just take a jump and trust that you have these problem solving skills and that no matter what comes up, you're going to be able to handle it. Because
I love that.
We have some friends right now that are thinking of starting a business and they're chatting with Zach and I about it all the time. And they're like, well, we're reading this book.
They're so serious about it.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, guys. So, but I think to describe those 18 months in a single word, maybe 2 words, I think it's in a way they were grueling, but in a way they were also very motivating, right? I think what's unique about Taylor and I is, we've always had an entrepreneurial streak, right? In college, one of Taylor's coffee tables was a whiteboard. So at like
I love that
3 a.m. we'd be scribbling ideas down. We always had that in us, but I don't think we ever fully envisioned it for ourselves.
That's so cool.
We're not in this for a TechCrunch article, a huge venture round. We don't even like calling ourselves entrepreneurs. I think so many people have co-opted that word now. But, we really got in this and are still in it because we felt like there was a need for guys like us. And that's what kept us going, right? Creating a product for people like us, people like you, that everyone could benefit from, right? Something that was good for environment, good for body. So there were so many setbacks over those 18 months.
Well, I think also one of the other things which we were talking about before, Zach, is like, the reason it took so long in part was we're always trying to bring thought back into these sort of mundane tasks of life and bringing thoughtfulness back into small things that actually have big impacts. That's sort of like how we think about building a business. It's how we design products. It's everything we do. And so it would have been really easy for us to kind of buy an off-the-shelf package of deodorant and fill it with something and slap a label on it and just launch it. But we were like, let's actually break this whole thing down, this one unique product, into its formula, into its fragrance, into its environmental impact, into how we market it and the story we tell around it. And let's put a ton of thought into it and actually put care into it so that our customers don't have to. And we can make it a little bit easier for them. And since we were really successful doing that with deodorant, we're now expanding, like Zach was saying at the very top, throughout the entire bathroom. We're trying to do that with everything that you use in every part of your day for 5 seconds, to have a lot more thought put into it.
And to be able to refill it too. Do you remember me saying that long laundry list of miscellaneous items? They're all in the bathroom. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at the toothpaste tube and I've rolled that sucker up until the very last inch just to squeeze it. Cause it's not something, oh my God, I got to go to Target now. Oh my God. I have to go like order all this stuff on Amazon, blah, 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 blah. Like the list will keep getting longer. And so in order to elongate that, you just kind of keep inching for it. We'll come up with the right term and we'll have it as your slogan eventually when you start launching all these other portfolio products. But there's got to be a word for that whenever you're like inching closer to like the end of whatever product that is. But I'm glad you guys are going to, continue launching more and more products to help people. I think it's going to be very fascinating to see. And then,
all those products you listed, by the way, not to harp on it too much, but they're all made from non-recyclable plastic. And that's really, sort of what we're trying to change.
So go replace my shampoo, my conditioner. I don't even need conditioner. I ain't got no hair, but I use shampoo a little bit. Okay. Body wash, toothpaste, right? We'll get to all of it. Helmm, I'm going to be relying on you guys. We're going to help save the planet together. Products with purpose. Tell us your craziest story. I'm interested to know. I mean, you said some of those days were grueling, but also very motivating. And I could imagine there must have been some funny times at 3 a.m. where the two of you were just looking at each other like, damn, we're really on this road together and we're not getting off of it till we've seen what we want to see with the change of the world. But if you guys had to give us a crazy story each, either collectively or independently as an entrepreneur, or what you said, you don't use that term. So maybe it's co-founders.
Yeah, you could use it. So I think for me, at least, I need to put a little bit more thought into it, but one that comes to mind immediately is in the very early launch days. We were sort of trying to do anything to get Helmm's name out there, get our product in the hands of real people. So one day or one weekend, maybe over a few days, I took, a few of our sort of PR, nice looking samples and brought them all around the city, bringing them into all different types of department stores, boutique stores, to try and, find someone we can sell Helmm through. And so throughout my journeys throughout Soho, Williamsburg, I ran into Idris Elba in Williamsburg at a J. Crew, I think it was. And it was me, him, and his, significant other. And I'm like, okay, great. I have my Helmm. I, see Idris Elba and I go up to him, I'm like nervous, like sweating. It's funny because I'm one of
some deodorant on to cover up the sweat.
Yeah, I'm in, this is kind of gross, apologies to the listeners, but I am a profuse sweater. And so sometimes my girlfriend will ask me, don't you own a deodorant brand? But anyway, so I go up to him and I think he thought I was a fan that was going to jump him or something. But I went up to Idris Elba. I'm like fumbling this Helmm, and I swear he squared up, like he thought I was like bum rushing him or something. And I was just so flustered. I remember dropping the deodorant, and eventually we got to talking. He was a super nice guy. Turns out he doesn't wear deodorant though. So
wow,
that was a roller coaster of a day for sure. But hopefully he'll listen to this and eventually start wearing some Helmm after all.
Yeah.
So.
I think my favorite, this wasn't that crazy, but this was in retrospect just like an insane idea. We were meeting with marketing firms early on. Like this was pre-launch and we were trying to figure out cool ways to launch the whole thing. And it was like a super out there marketing firm in New York City. And they came back to us like, give us a month. We're going to come back to you with these great ideas. So we're like, okay. They come back a month later and they pitched this thing. They're like, okay, you're going to be down in Miami. We're going to give you Mario Batali, who's now been canceled. We're going to give you Mario Batali, a bunch of Victoria's Secret models, and we're going to do a volleyball tournament. And you're going to give deodorant away. And we were like, we don't have the money to do that. That's also just so weird. Why would you have
LeBron James and the Kardashians? I think they threw in there as well. They're like, you're going to love this idea. I see it happening.
So are they all playing volleyball together? And then
it was weird.
The idea was Mario would be Mario. I guess we're on a first name basis. He would be cooking meals for the volleyball players. But yeah, you go around New York City as a small startup and get pitched, a couple $1 million launch ideas. I guess it's just sort of lay of the land. So,
see, and I knew you guys would have something. Wait, I started thinking maybe you should invite Alba over to play volleyball tournament and get those guys from the marketing place back up.
There you go. It all
Right.
comes together.
I love that. You know, there's so many exciting things that happen when you launch a business, and I think that both of you can attest to that. But there's also this really realistic, but sometimes non-negotiable idea that you're not really going to have a work-life balance. So for the last 4 years or so, do you feel like the two of you have had some type of balance, or has it really become in and of itself just a lifestyle? And I always want to ask this because everybody's perspective is different. The journey of being a founder of something is always unique. Do you guys find enough time to balance, you know, what you want to do aside from Helm, or is it pretty much day in, day out? Helm kind of weaves itself in there at some point.
Well, if you haven't been able to tell, Zach has a very severe case of undiagnosed ADD. So I get text messages and Slack messages from him literally all hours of the day at the most random time about the most random things. And it'll be like 60.
Look at his face.
I want to check Slack, and it's
like
60 messages in a row. He's like, I have this great new idea, and then just goes on and on. But yeah, it is a lifestyle. The good thing about it is that we're passionate about it. So it doesn't really feel like, most of the time, it doesn't really feel like work as much as kind of just like taking care of your own baby a little bit. But that being said, what I think is kind of cool about this is that we've maintained our friendship really well throughout this entire period.
Because you guys are like brothers and almost like husbands of a business together, if you think about it.
Oh yeah, definitely husband, work husband. But it's like we've done a really good job about when we're together socially, we don't talk about work. We protect our weekends for at least 36 hours from Saturday through Sunday afternoon. And I think those things are super important for anyone who's launching a business, because you need to maintain that, or else your mental health goes to crap. And you need to have a real life outside of work, if only just to make sure that your work is productive and happy and you're fulfilled. So I think the lesson we've always taken from the beginning is maintain our relationships, keep our friendship kind of separate outside of the workspace, and make sure that you do give yourself some time to do things that you love outside of the work that you do.
I love that.
That being said, though, you know, of course we keep it separate. We keep our social lives out of it, but at the same time, I get to talk to one of my best friends for 15 hours a day. Every day. You know, it's like it's crazy. And you know, we both came from, Taylor was in investment banking. I was working at a hedge fund. We probably work more hours now than we did then, but it doesn't feel like it. And it's way more enjoyable. So, you know, I think it's one of those things, and I guess this is probably the single biggest piece of advice I'd have for someone else who's interested in this, in this way of life is, you know, understand that running a business in a lot of ways, it ebbs and flows. So during those slower periods, take advantage of it for sure. You just have to be prepared at every moment to drop everything for, you know, however long if needed. But I think we do a really good job of balancing, you know, as we've sort of been weaving throughout our conversation. We both love to do things outside. We took a few meetings on the chairlift together this year, a few calls on the slower chairlifts out in Colorado. We had our company retreat out in Kauai last year, surfing and diving and stuff. So, you know, we definitely still work a ton, but I think it's way more enjoyable. And that, you know, that's one of the beauties of what we do.
That's cool. Like really, really cool. Cause it's not until we hear it from your guys' mouths that we as people who don't own a business, like you said, like an e-commerce business, really understand. Cause I mean, I could imagine the two of you have to know every inch of the company Helm, but then to another extent, he's laughing. You have to also understand like where it's going from here. Like what are the major tent poles 6 months, a year, 5 years down the line, and like start inching towards that day by day.
I was laughing because and this is kind of like part of that 18-month ramp up process, but we've learned so many weird things about how like society works. Like,
I'd say
how the intricacies of shipping stuff from China to the US or from Canada to the US, or the intricacies of how the FDA works with, you know, the lawyers that we have with it's just like, when we look back on it, it's like, that's what I was saying. What kind of skills do you need to go into this? It's just problem solving and confidence
Yeah.
that you're going to be able to figure it out. Because
Have you guys
everything is
been keeping a
crazy.
journal of everything? You know what I keep thinking about? I'm the same way with the show. We've had to learn every angle of the business side of the portfolio, what it's like to launch anything, convince people to come onto the show like you two great guys. You know, like there's a lot that you learn. Are you guys keeping a long journal or diary or just keeping mental note of all the things that you learn as a business owner?
You know, we probably should. That's a good idea, but you know, I think it goes back to what we were saying before. Like it sounds like you could keep track of that stuff and have a playbook for the next person, but
Yeah, but
it all just, like, some of the things we've experienced, you just could never even make up. So, you know,
and put
like,
into words at that.
yeah, like maybe, for example, a pandemic,
Yeah.
then, you know, affected by a derecho in Iowa, which I had never heard of before, and that affects your supply chain lines and everything. And you know, I think Taylor, of course, wouldn't take the credit for himself, but one of the things that has been so great about doing this with him is, like, he's the most resourceful guy I've ever met. So I think what a lot of people, and myself included, come into this thinking is, you know, you come from a corporate job, things are just sort of taken care of, right? In our world, we'll be told many times, particularly with the types of products we're creating, you know, these new innovative refillable designs, we'll be told that can't happen, or
Mm.
that's not going to make it there in time, or, you know, it's impossible to have those materials work together or something like that. So, you know, one of the things Taylor has done so well is, you know, there's always an answer to everything if you know where to look, if you look hard enough, and if you're creative enough. So, you know,
You're making me blush, Zach.
I think at the top you know, we talked about what we would tell other people, and it's sort of like explore every avenue you possibly can, because there's always an answer out there, and that's what this has taught me more than anything else. You know, it's like, you have the internet, you have your phone, and that's really all you need. You can figure stuff out.
And there's no ceiling when you have your own company or something that's your baby child.
Right.
You know, that's the beauty of it. There's endless possibilities. Taylor's over here looking to himself like, yeah, but I wish there was a fucking ceiling.
No, there's self-imposed ceilings, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, we're painting this so rosy. There are definitely days when we're like both sitting there and we'll hop on a call together just to like review the day, and we're just like, what the hell happened today? Like, what the hell happened this week? Zach was talking about the ebbs and flows. Everything is like, starting a business is an emotional roller coaster.
I say.
And so, yeah, sometimes you have these like, and it's an emotional roller coaster also against yourself a little bit, because you have your own goals and guidelines. And when we launched this thing, we were like, let's launch like the best deodorant ever. And that was sort of our ceiling. And we we're like, we just need to get there. We just need to get there. We just need to get there. And then when we finally got there, we're like, okay, that actually happened to be successful. Let's try to break out and try to do these.
You keep surprising yourself. That's what they say.
Yeah. Sometimes you surprise yourself. Sometimes you run into these intractable problems. Like for us, it was like, you know, with a particular supplier we had one time who was an international guy who was absolutely crazy and was trying to sue us for all sorts of crazy things that were made up. And so it was like, you have all these things come at you all the time. It becomes an emotional roller coaster, and
I'd say
a wild ride.
But you figure it out.
That's the point.
Right? I want to figure something else out before I let you two handsome gentlemen leave the show. Can you give us a tease as to some of these upcoming products, and also give us a little bit of insight as to what you guys want to do with Helmm going forward, if you had to give us a line of sight for maybe the next year or so? You know, I want to get in the mind of the entrepreneur here for a second and understand maybe what some of your short-term goals are. I mean, obviously we all want to get out of the pandemic together safely and continue doing well with our businesses, but in general, where would you guys want to see Helmm to go? And then in doing so, what are some of those products you want to
Totally.
launch?
So, you know, I think, to your point, everyone is looking for some vitamin D, some outdoors time, especially here in New York. You know, you can see people starting to feel spring coming along. Hopefully, the vaccination schedule continues to roll out as planned. But we're all really ready for our world to reopen, right? We're ready to live those mobile lives. We're ready to move again, ready to travel, ready to, go everywhere. And so in line with that, we've actually been working on some really cool products that coincide with that reopening world. So products that are designed to, say you're going from, I don't know, work to dinner to a bar to a birthday party, by the end of that stretch, I don't know about you, but the funk is starting to build a little bit. So
Yeah.
developing, for example, an ultra light sort of mobile deodorant product that's never been seen before to address those needs, especially as people continue to reopen and can start to move again. That's what we're working on in the immediate future. I think, long term, as we mentioned, we're working on some additional sort of bathroom sustainable type packaging, things that we hope will have a wide reaching impact beyond just Helm.
Within 16 months, we will have touched every part of your bathroom.
I like the way you said that. Okay, good to know.
Not touched in a creepy way. We'll have addressed every part of your bathroom.
Okay, so now there's problems with my bathroom, but they are, like you said, some of that stuff's non-reusable.
We're gonna fix your tiling. We're gonna change
a whole renovation by Helm.
Yeah.
I heard it here first.
For us too, one of the coolest things about our product is our, I sort of mentioned this briefly, but our scents are amazing. They're amazing. They're like, we always say, better than your cologne, works better than your deodorant.
It's like that review we got, Zach.
They can truly double as like a cologne or fragrance as well as a deodorant. So what we get from a lot of our customers is, hey, can you make X with Night Market? Hey, can you make Y with Trailblazer? Can you make Z with Hudson? So we've taken a lot of that feedback and plan to release some more products as well that utilize these scents. And, I won't bore you. I could talk about that for hours, but.
Listen, do you want to just launch episode number 2 at this point? Men of the Hour.
I'm waiting for Hoppa.
Founders Week.
I got to save some material for.
Can we please?
Yeah.
For anybody listening, we also, like I said earlier, we talked about Hoppa. Taylor, you're more than welcome to come sit in on the audience, brother. I'm not saying you have to look a certain way. Hey, we're not here to discriminate, but half Asians are going to be right. You're going to be a support brother. Yeah, we'll save a lot there, but I'm really excited for you guys. I think you guys have launched an incredible product. I'm excited to use it. I'm sure a lot of people are as well. Where can we find you most immediately, especially via Instagram and web?
Totally, yeah. So if you want to check us out on Instagram, handle is at Helmm NYC. That's HELMM NYC. Of course, you can find us at helmm.com, HELMM.com. We have a very special promo code just for you guys, Men of the Hour. Hopefully you know how to spell that. That'll get you a nice discount off your first purchase with us. If you want to check us out in real life, you can also find us at Saks Fifth Avenue on Saks.com as well.
You know what? I want to buy this in person. Don't ship anything to me. I know you said, hey, we'll send you some. I'm going to go walk into Saks and I'm going to go grab something off the shelf. I'm going to sniff it, find my favorite scent, and have the whole experience to myself. I hope anybody listening does the same if you have a Saks near you. We have one in New York. I'm so glad, Zach, Taylor, for joining the show. Thank you for being here. Founders Week is a very special week for us because we are bringing light to a lot of founders and entrepreneurs in the sense that I think your guys' stories are very incredible. Not only that, but all the advice that you just gave us. But the two of you nonetheless have launched an incredible business product. And at some extent, I know that your journey is only just beginning, which is the most exciting part. So thank you so much again for joining the show.
Thank you, Justin.
We appreciate it. Thanks for having us. And this was great. Hopefully we can do it again soon.